LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESPS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0.
Through that period of high pressure on the vehicle, the engines on the first stage are now throttling back up as we continue to make our journey to orbit. Coming up in about a minute are 3 events in rapid succession. First up is main engine cutoff, also known as MECO,
engine chill
followed by
started.
stage separation, and then second engine start, also known as SES1. Main engine cutoff is where all 9 engines on the first stage will shut off in preparation for the second event, stage separation. During stage separation, the first and second stages will separate from one another. The first stage makes its way back to the drone ship for a landing attempt, and the second stage will ignite its Merlin vacuum engine and continue to boost Dragon to low Earth orbit. Again, those are going to be happening in rapid succession in about 15 seconds here.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. INVAC ignition.
You heard the callouts, we see it on screen. Successful main engine cutoff, followed by successful stage separation, and then ignition of our Merlin vacuum engine. On the left-hand side of the screen, the first stage, again, it's making its way back to Earth, but it's still being illuminated by the second stage Merlin vacuum engine there. So if you are just joining us, you're watching a live webcast for the 24th Commercial Resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. This is SpaceX's 31st mission for 2021 and the 5th Dragon flight to the International Space Station this year. Couple of views on screen. The right-hand side of the screen is a view of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The Dragon capsule carrying all of the wonderful Holiday Treats and Science is on the opposite end of that engine. Again, that is continuing to run smoothly as it makes its way to orbit. On the left-hand side of the screen is the first stage. You'll notice some honeycomb-like structures. There's 2 of them on screen right now. Those are our hypersonic grid fins. They're positioned at the top of the first stage booster. There are 4 of them, actually. And those will start to swivel and move around to make sure that they are guiding the first stage back to its targeted landing zone. For today's mission, it's going to be the drone ship Just Read the Instruction, which is parked in the Atlantic Ocean. Next event for our mission today is going to be the first stage entry burn. It's going to be the first of 2 burns. In order to make its way back to our drone ship, the first stage has to execute these 2 burns. The first, again, is the entry burn, where 3 of our Merlin engines will reignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn. This happens about a minute later. This is a single engine burn that will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. So again, the first stage has 2 burns before it can make its first landing attempt on our drone ship. And as we wait for that event, you might be interested to know that in order to get into space, the rocket actually has to do more than go up. It actually has to go sideways really, really fast. At liftoff, gravity is pulling straight down on the rocket. And as we ascend, we tilt the engines, a term called gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally. So we're still going up, but we're also heading horizontally away from the launch pad in what we call a gravity turn.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Things continue to go smoothly for both the first and second stages. Again, the first stage entry burn
follow nominal trajectory.
should start in about 10 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn is in startup.
And you can see the velocity on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. We're starting to decrease significantly.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
So great news. That is burn 1 of 2 complete. The Falcon 9 first stage is also equipped with 4 landing legs made of state-of-the-art carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb. They're placed around the base of the rocket and deployed just prior to landing.
Stage 1 is transonic.
The first stage landing burn is expected to start here in about 20 seconds and last for about 25 seconds. So during the duration of that burn, we are going to be listening for the call out for SECO, which stands for second engine cutoff. The Merlin vacuum engine that you see on the screen will be shutting off that engine, and they're listening for another call out for a confirmation of
shutdown.
Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
There it is. So this is the first landing for this particular booster, but the 100th successful landing for an orbital class rocket. What a way to end off the year. We also heard that the second stage engine, the Merlin vacuum engine, successfully shut off its engine. And we're going to pause here to see if we can confirm a good orbit of the second stage.
Expected loss of signal, Cape. Acquisition signal, Newfoundland.
And I am getting confirmation that we do indeed have a good orbit. So the second stage is going to be coasting for a few minutes here. This is a view of the unpressurized cargo section of the Dragon. So the second stage right now is making some small adjustments during the coast phase prior to separation. We should also have video of Dragon separating from the top of the second stage itself. It should give us a nice view of that the view we just saw of the unpressurized cargo section as Dragon will slowly depart away from the second stage. Dragon is going to be joining the Crew 3 vehicle Endurance that is currently attached to the International Space Station and on orbit. And as always, it's always exciting to see two Dragons docked at the space station at the same time. So we're just under a minute for Dragon to separate from the top of the second stage. Again, this is a cargo mission, so there is no crew aboard the Dragon as part of today's mission. And in fact, we will modify the vehicles slightly for these types of missions. So there are no seats, there are no life support systems. This saves weight. It also frees up some space for more cargo, and it also allows us to refurbish the Dragon a little bit quicker once it splashes back down to Earth in about a month.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
So we are
Stage
expecting
separation
Dragon to
confirmed.
separate any
Or
second
Dragon
now.
separation.
And there it goes. Again, this camera view is on the second stage, looking at the Dragon's unpressurized cargo section. The Dragon has about a day before it makes its way to the International Space Station and docks. Coming up is nose cone opening sequence. But that is going to do it for me here in Hawthorne. I'm going to hand it over to Shaniqua in Houston for the next mission milestones.
Thanks, Andy. And everything is still going well back here in Mission Control, Houston. And right after Dragon separated, it began a series of automatic checkouts, including small firings of the Draco maneuvers thrusters. The next milestone is nose cone deploy. The nose cone protects the docking hardware and rendezvous tracking elements of the top of Dragon during ascent. The nose cone deploy uncovers the 4 forward bulkhead thrusters, which Dragon will use for its major burn maneuvers to catch up with the space station. Once open, the nose cone will stay in that position until the very end of its mission, closing prior to re-entry to provide some additional protection to that same hardware during re-entry. So right now we're waiting to hear confirmation that the nose cone is fully deployed. And after confirmation, we'll have one of the program managers here join me on console. Join me virtually, sorry. You're currently seeing live views of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. You currently see Flight Director Adi Boulos standing as we wait for that final confirmation of nose cone deploy. Now joining me on the phone is manager of the International Space Station Transportation Integration Office, Phil Dempsey. Hi, Phil. Can you outline some of the major activities for the crew with CRS-24?
Sure. Thanks, Shaniqua. First of all, let me just say, it's great to watch this outstanding launch, kind of watching through the weather and manage to get a shot through, and great to see Dragon catch up tomorrow. This mission enables well over 500 hours of research, some of which actually has to be completed before the vehicle undocks again in about 30 days, so the samples can be returned to investigators. As always, research is a key activity during this mission. We've also got the transfer of 2 external payloads, SCP-H7 and H8, from the Dragon trunk to their locations on ISS. And then there's work to prepare for spacewalks planned later in the increment in the coming months. There's several maintenance activities with hardware showing up on this mission. And then we have a software transition plan. So, overall, a lot really going on during the 30 days or so that this CRS-24 is on to enable all of this work.
That's awesome. Thank you, Phil. And of course, these resupply missions and deliver science, as you mentioned, hardware and other cargo to the station. But with these critical deliveries to the station, how important are they for the astronauts? You said over 500 research activities and experiments. How important is that for us to do on the International Space Station?
Yeah, so these missions are absolutely critical. The International Space Station is operating for the purpose of doing research and technology demonstration. So, we've got over 24 different experiments going up on this. These 500-600 hours of crew time that it enables are key to what the astronauts are there for in the first place. And what's unique about these SpaceX missions is that we get the return science back down in about a month. So operation of these experiments around this full mission timeline is critical. In addition, we've got hardware going up, as you heard, which is critical to some of the maintenance activities. We've got some hardware that's going up to get one of our exercise devices, a new spare back in place for it, and some additional hardware for our EMUs, which are used for the spacewalks that we've got. But then there's also updated supplies for the crew. Of course, Christmas dinner, hopefully, and some Christmas presents for the crew, which is always a treat for them to get on these types of missions. So absolutely all of this is critical to keep the crew occupied doing what they're there for in the first place.
Thanks, Phil. And we did have confirmation currently that the nose cone is deploying. It is opening currently, and I will confirm with you all when it is fully open. As always, Phil, it's a busy time aboard the International Space Station with cargo vehicles and crews coming and going. And, like you mentioned, the upgraded equipment, how complex will the next few months be for the International Space Station program and the global partnership?
So, we're closing out what's been actually a really great, really busy year, and next year looks to be no different. In fact, it starts really tomorrow with our Russian partners following this launch with the undock of module. It's really cleanup from them installing their node module on the Russian segment. There are 3 Russian spacewalks planned for late January. We've got some U.S. spacewalks in February-March timeframe. And that's to get ready for the next set of upgraded solar arrays coming later in the year. We've also got another cargo resupply mission, our first U.S. private astronaut mission coming up, and additional resupply missions, and then we get back into the crew cycle launches on the Russian and the U.S. side both. So it's actually very busy across the space station program with our international commercial partners both. So while it is complex, as you said, Shanique, we've got outstanding teams across the program who do this all the time. They do it very well. So, I see it as really fitting that our teams close out the year with a launch that get 2022 off and running.
That's right. And thanks again, Phil, for joining us. And happy holidays. Back here.
Happy holidays. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, flight controllers are monitoring the systems on the station itself ahead of Dragon's arrival Wednesday morning. Once Dragon crosses that approach ellipsoid, which is that mythical sphere around the station, flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston will begin joint operations with the SpaceX teams in Hawthorne, California. NASA astronauts Rash Achari and Tom Marshburn will be monitoring the approach and arrival of Dragon with a planned docking Wednesday morning at 3:30 a.m. Central Time, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Once Cargo Dragon is docked to the station, Chari and Marshburn will begin hatch operations to open the hatches between the International Space Station and Cargo Dragon. And with that, we have final confirmation that the nose cone is open. So with that, everything is still on track on the International Space Station side, so that'll do it for us here in Mission Control Houston. Happy holidays, and now heading over to Kennedy. Megan?
And that's going to wrap up our launch coverage of SpaceX's 24th Commercial Resupply Services mission. Cargo Dragon, as you heard her say, is on course to dock to the International Space Station at about 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. We will have live coverage here on NASA TV, and that will begin at 3 a.m. In the meantime, you can learn even more about this mission on nasa.gov/commercial resupply. Thank you for joining us. We leave you with a replay of the launch. Happy holidays.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.